As an employer of so many, we feel great responsibility to ensure that we're leaning in. And one of the biggest areas that we've seen is how are we equipping our people leaders to be supporting that culture of care, engaging and checking in, asking questions, directing and providing support. Because we also saw an interesting stat that nearly 70% of workers feel that their manager has a greater impact on their well-being than their doctor, than their therapist, and even their partner. And so it's a massive area of focus at the moment.
Emilee, how are you?
I am excellent, Chris. How are you?
I'm good. You're here in the flesh.
I am here, and it's sunny and beautiful in London.
No one believes you.
I wish I could turn the camera.
I literally, for the audience, I was driving down the road to the studio and I saw you walking and I was like, is that Emilee? Surely that's not Emilee just having a nice stroll down the street in London.
Yes, it was.
So at least you chose to walk and enjoy the journey at least.
I love walking.
Yeah?
Love walking. Peaceful, relaxing, and a day like today, you can't.
And you had to drive and you had to walk past the McDonald's.
Yes, I did. Very tempting not to stop, but I will be going there after.
How does that feel when you walk past? Are you always tempted to have a little sneak in and look around and see what's happening?
100%. I would say more so, I feel like stopping in and just saying thank you.
Oh, great.
You know, our restaurant teams work so hard, and they truly are the heartbeat of our business. And stopping in to say hello, thank you for absolutely everything you're doing to serve our guests.
What's their reaction normally? How do you intro?
Delight.
How do you intro yourself, by the way?
Well, sometimes
like, oh my God.
I don't. Sometimes I don't.
Oh, you don't?
Sometimes
Okay.
I don't want to create, because at times it could create stress, but it's more about just sharing the appreciation as a customer. But certainly when we go on market visits, it's incredibly important that we make them feel special, because they, if I think about what our purpose is, it's delivering delicious feel-good moments, and they serve up millions of those over the course of a year. And so how can we celebrate them? How can we make them feel special? One of the things we'll often do is we'll carry pins with us and give them pins to recognize them when we go in for our restaurant visits.
And they're the things that people really remember. The moments that matter. Like when I look back on my career, at some of the best moments, it's those moments of gratitude.
Absolutely.
Where a leader's walked out of the office and said, congratulations, or just well done. Those things mean more than promotions in some cases to me, to be honest. Just that recognition.
Absolutely.
That most people, unfortunately, not every company is great at doing that.
Right.
As well. So before we get into that, let's take a step back further. Yeah. Tell everyone a little bit more about yourself personally and your journey to where we are now.
Happy to. So Emilee DeMartino, I head up HR. I'm our Chief People Officer for our international markets at McDonald's, and serving 15 markets, 750,000 employees.
Did you say 750,000?
750,000 employees.
I never knew it was that much.
It's a great sense of responsibility.
That is a lot. Did you say that's just within international markets?
Yes, just our international operated markets.
Wow. What is that globally, roughly?
About 2 million.
Whoa.
Yes.
I knew it obviously is big, but I didn't realize that.
Yes.
So that makes you one of the largest employers in the world.
And if you think about our people practices, I would say that's one of the things that we really think about. How are we creating a culture and environment where people feel safe, supported, respected? How do we, do we have the best hiring practices so that as we bring people into the organization, we're bringing the right talent in, and we're setting them up for success with our learning and development. So it's an incredible role. We are, in the people function, keepers of the culture, as are all of our leaders in the organization.
That's incredible. It's also an interesting responsibility, because for many of my friends, even my neighbor growing up, for most people, it's their first job.
Yes.
It's their first experience of working in going to work. So there's sort of this additional responsibility there. How does that
Absolutely.
make you feel?
I would say we completely pride ourselves in having that accountability, having that responsibility to help set people up for success.
Yeah.
Education, life skills. If you imagine working in a McDonald's restaurants, the relationships and the connections that you build, the communication and engagement, the focus on customer service and serving guests, all of those critical life skills go so far. Being part of a team goes so far when you think about setting yourself up for success.
Yeah.
We did, several years ago, we did an exciting campaign made at McDonald's, and we started to look at some of the research and insights on where our crew went, and
from when they started.
Beyond,
Wow.
So where they went. We had over 500,000 that had gone on to be nurses, 2.5 million that became entrepreneurs. We've had some recent work where we looked at data, and in the U.S., 1 in 8 Americans have worked for McDonald's. In Canada, it was 1 in 10.
Wow.
So 100%, it's a great place to get a start.
Yeah. It's also, we were discussing this before we hit record, it's like part of people's childhood.
Oh, everyone.
It's so ingrained.
Yeah.
We were talking about the Happy Meal toys that we still love or remember from when we were kids and collecting them. So you've also got that super interesting dynamic that most brands perhaps don't have, where people, you don't have to explain this is who we are and what we do. What's some of the common questions that you get?
Oh, the most popular question, and even from my family, I get, do you get free McDonald's? And no. I proudly pay for my McDonald's.
I thought you'd have this McDonald's black card.
Exactly.
It's unlimited McDonald's card. No, okay, so that's the most common question.
Yeah, that is perhaps the most common question that I get.
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
The other thing I think people often don't realize is that we are a franchise business.
Yes.
So over 90% of our restaurants are owned and operated by local franchisees in the community. And that is something that I would say is a massive point of pride for us.
Mm-hmm.
When we think about the connection to the community, being able to build excitement, recognition, we've seen incredible things that they do to bring the culture to life. So
I think I said to you when we first spoke, one of my neighbors growing up worked at McDonald's, then worked his way up to be an owner. And it was like, I remember when he became a manager, let alone an owner, from where we grew up in East London, which was pretty rough, like on a council estate, didn't have much, that he managed to do that for us looking from the outside in, being like, wow, like that's really inspiring. To see someone that represents our culture and our community achieve that was huge. Like, I just remember like seeing that and just being like, wow, that's inspiring.
I would say that is something, when I think about McDonald's, there's probably 2 core principles that I think about. The first one is opportunity. There is so much possibilities that come with being connected and attached to the brand, whether it's the education and the learning that we provide, the life skills over the course of working, and even the connections that you create, but the opportunity. We've got thousands of franchisees around the globe that are their own independent business owners and entrepreneurs, and the way that they're able to thrive and create such value in their communities, I think, is incredible to see. So that opportunity is certainly massive. The other piece is partnership. One of the things I love about our business is what we call the 3-legged stool. Our franchisees, our suppliers, and the company. And to be able to work across those 3 areas in tight connection, collaboration, when hard things happen, I think about COVID, everyone leaned in together to say, how do we come through this as a system? How do we come through this as a McFamily? And so...
A McFamily.
Yeah.
Of course that's Brandon. Take me back 1 second to your career. How did you get into HR? Did you choose this career, or did it choose you along the way?
Yes. Well, so going clear back to the beginning, I would say growing up in a very small farming community in central Kansas, I never dreamed I'd be sitting in one of the most amazing cities in the world and working for one of the most amazing brands. And so as I graduated high school, went on to college, studied business, I ended up working in banking for a few years.
Oh, really?
As I was getting my master's, a great experience to be able to be in the business, work with clients, and it was commercial banking at the time, and then go through my master's, the learning, the connecting the dots, the understanding how you can apply some of the ideas that you're seeing really got me energized. And one of the ladies that I was working with at the bank said, your mind works like my daughter's. Her daughter worked for Accenture, and so I ended up then going and working for Accenture. And that was an incredible experience. Appreciated the variety, appreciated the deep learning on project management, change management, how you bring people on a journey. And so spent a few years in consulting with Accenture and then Mercer. And then I went to CNA Insurance, spent about 7 years at CNA Insurance leading, ultimately when I left, change and culture, which was a brilliant combination of business strategy and corporate strategy. Yes.
Change doesn't work without the culture.
Totally.
And vice versa as well.
Totally. And so that was an incredible role that focused on some of the HR centers of excellence, but also gave me the opportunity to work really closely with the leadership team there to think about new go-to-market strategies, strategic priorities that needed to get executed, and really harness talent, harness our leaders across the organization to help drive those programs forward. And then McDonald's called, and certainly I've had a variety of roles, excellent roles over the course of my time at McDonald's, and I would say perhaps most proud of some of the progress that we've made around creating a culture of care, whether it was redefining our values in 2020 to ensure that everyone across the system, listening to our franchisees, listening to our restaurant teams, listening to our suppliers, redefining those values in a way that resonated across the system, and then leveraging those values to make decisions. And so whether it's where we're operating, whether it's how we navigated COVID, so that I would say was certainly an exciting part of the journey. And then, a couple other elements that I would mention is, as we were in the midst of COVID, we asked ourselves, are there no regrets moves that we could lean into? And we ended up shaping what we called global people brand standards. We want to have the same level of rigor and consistency when it comes to our people practices in our restaurants as we do with our operational excellence and with our food safety. So can we come up with some key standards that across every restaurant we have, we know that we're assessing and we're ensuring that we've got those practices in place. And so that was another area I would say we've made great progress. We continue to, listen, learn, improve on those practices. But
how did you agree on those practices? Could you kind of do like a survey? Did you go on a tour of the business? Because that's especially in such a large organization, you've got so much. What was your listening strategy?
Yeah, listening was a big part of it. Certainly across our several of our international markets at the time, we had several of these practices in place. But one of the things we did is we said, let's listen to the various stakeholders out there. Yeah. And then we also said and took a look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs and said, we're going to start by ensuring that we've got a solid foundation when it comes to safe, respectful, inclusive workplace. And then also we were going through COVID at the time. So we said we need to have the right practices in place. And again, it was about PPE, safety procedures, protocols.
Because you kept going, right?
And yes, we were keen to serve our customers as quickly as we could. We had lines queuing up significantly the moments we opened our doors back up. But it really is, I would say, this combination between having a clear, aligned set of values and priorities, and being committed to following those as you're making decisions and guiding the business. And that's something I would say really proud of how the business has leaned in.
That's been amazing. I'd love to talk to you about the digital transformation piece.
Yeah.
Because obviously you've got a massive population of frontline workers, right? It's like the biggest part of your business, I'm sure. As well. Like, how are you looking at tech data to improve the employee experience? What are some examples? Some of the things you're doing to make sure you can reach them.
Right. So we've been highly decentralized for several years. And so one of the things we're doing right now is asking ourselves, where does having consistency and some common practices make sense? And I would say the first one is data. So over the last few years, we've worked really hard to start to harmonize our data to get to a consistent place. If you think about the value and the power of insights on people data.
At that scale as well?
Yes.
Wow.
So it's, things like, are we defining turnover consistently and tracking turnover consistently? So some great work has been done over the last few years to get us there. So I would say we're kind of in the foundational stage of let's put some of those practices in place. Then we're thinking about how do we get more sophisticated, lean into advanced analytics. And that being, how do we take some of this now consistent data as we get there and generate some common reports that we know are going to help our restaurant managers, our franchisees, our market teams really run the business and support our people. And then thirdly, getting to predictive analytics, which again, that's a little bit further out. If I think about a horizon of the next, 3 to 5 years, but having those foundational pieces in place, having structured operational reports that help us navigate the business in a consistent way, and again, learn from each other, having that consistency, and then moving to predictive analytics is quite powerful. And when I think about some of the predictive analytics space, you start to think about quality of hire, you start to think about predictive scheduling. I would say we're quite obsessed, and I'm quite obsessed about how do we make work better for our people. And I will admit I like to get geeked out on data, but having data that's structured, that's consistent, and building some of that process flow, I think is going to certainly help enable.
That's going to be huge. What about from like an upskilling and reskilling perspective? Because obviously you're when do they have time to do that? You have to show up in the flow of work and it's changed, a mobile experience, etc.
So if you think about 50 years ago, how we served our customers, how we served our guests was through very few channels. Walk up, drive through, dine in. Today, we have so many more service channels, whether it's delivery, mobile order and pay, ordering on the app, the screen, the kiosk.
The kiosk screen, yeah.
So there are so many different ways to order. We also have loyalty. We are building out different promotions, different deals, loyalty programs to support our guests. And so all of that we have to train our crew on. We have to help our managers understand what's coming when, so that they can manage the restaurants. But then I would also say for our people. So moving from a place where you ran a restaurant without all that technology is quite different to running it with that technology. If I reflect back over the last year, I think about 30% of the new roles we filled were completely new roles that we've had in the organization when it comes to cyber or transformation roles. And so not only are we thinking about how do we have the right skills and capabilities in the restaurant to deliver, delicious feel-good moments to our guests, but we're also thinking about what do our corporate teams need to be able to enable some of that change, some of that growth as well.
Yeah. So a lot of those roles didn't even exist that you have now.
Yeah.
So do you have like an app that employees use so they can access resources and training?
Yeah, we absolutely.
How does it work
yes, we've got. In the restaurants, we'll have our learning programs. And one of the things I'm excited we're leaning into this year is shift leader certification and recertification.
Nice.
We've developed some excellent training that gets at how do we make our learning more modern. Also, gamification when it comes to, a shift simulation and running a shift. So
that's good.
That might be a good one to try out. But there's tons we've continued to do to really invest in modernizing our learning, making it more bite-sized, making it digestible for our restaurant teams as well. And again, then I think a big part, if I think about on the corporate side, is investing in some of the digital fluency that's needed. A big focus that we've continued to lean into is customer centricity, data and analytics. So certainly from a people standpoint, we're investing more and more in data and analytics and thinking about how are we going to create the systems, harmonize the data, pull it together. But then we have to, upskill our business partners on how they're going to interact with the business, upskill our teams, upskill our people leaders and people managers on the new ways of working.
Yeah. I'd love to learn more about your hiring, right? Because I can only imagine. How many people roughly do you hire a year?
We hire approximately 2 million people a year.
No way.
And partially that's because we're continuing to open more restaurants. So so
that's part of the growth.
About 43,000 restaurants today. Wow. By the end of 2027, we want to have 50,000 restaurants.
My brain can't even comprehend.
So as we think about how do we rationalize some of our systems, how do we get benefit and value from scale and consistency, we're also looking at, are there areas we can lean in to drive greater impact now? And one of those areas we have leaned in has been with hiring solutions and platforms. So we've partnered with Paradox. We are leveraging the Olivia functionality we call the solution McHire.
Of course you do.
But it has had a massive impact on our hiring. I mean, one of the things we talked earlier about is obsessed about how can we make work better for our restaurant teams. They spend a lot of time, as you can imagine, interviewing, reviewing resumes, trying to narrow down applications. And what we've been able to do is give them back 5 to 6 hours a week where we've deployed McHire to streamline that process. And one of the other things that we've seen, the impacts, is we're bringing time to hire down by about 10 days in many cases. So if you think about someone walking into a restaurant or applying, yes. I mean, if you're waiting 2 to 3 weeks for someone to call you back to say you've got an opportunity, you've lost them. And so this has absolutely changed the game in terms of the experience for our existing, our restaurant managers and our existing teams, but also streamlines that process so that, a candidate that's interested is going to be in the mix now instead of going next door to a competitor.
So they have basically the mobile app experience on their phone, and they can engage and get answers without even waiting for a human being to come back straight away, and then it's kind of escalated forward.
Yes, absolutely. Collect all the prerequisite information that's required, streamlines the process quite significantly.
Wow. How's that made? What's been the feedback from your hiring team?
It's been incredible. And I would say feedback from our franchisees has been incredible as well.
Oh, they must be loving it.
So, exactly.
By the way, I just said like a
I know. Well done.
I didn't mean that.
I'm loving it, Chris.
Yeah, they must be over the moon because then that frees them up to spend more time with their people.
Absolutely. And that's exactly it. I mean, where we want our restaurant managers to be spending their time is with our guests and with our crew, helping coach, helping support, helping manage the restaurants. And so this has been a game changer for us. Nice.
You mentioned earlier around health and well-being. How do you kind of personalize and prioritize your health and well-being? And also, how do you encourage your teams to do the same?
Such an important area. I would say, me personally, one of the things I love to do, you noted that I was walking in from the train this morning. I love walking, getting some fresh air, decompressing. I've recently got this Oura ring that's tracking my sleep and getting enough rest.
I've been thinking about getting one for a while, actually.
Yeah, but foundational. I think some of those pieces, it's really hard to be at your best if you're not taking care of yourself. And I think that's important for all of us. With our teams, we do have a focus on well-being, and we don't think solely about physical well-being, but it's a broader construct. It's physical well-being, emotional well-being, social well-being, environment. So ensuring that our people have the space, have the access to resources. And one of the things, we just recently had a People Manager Connect, where we bring our people managers together. We'll have a conversation, but focusing on well-being was a space that is so important. It was interesting. I mean, if we think about the cost of mental illness, I mean, it's quite stark to see $16 trillion by 2030. Wow. And so it's a massive, massive opportunity, a massive issue to get our arms around. And as an employer of so many, we feel great responsibility to ensure that we're leaning in. And one of the biggest areas that we've seen is, how are we equipping our people leaders to be supporting that culture of care, engaging and checking in with their people, asking questions, directing and providing support. Because we also saw an interesting stat that nearly 70% of workers feel that their manager has a greater impact on their well-being than their doctor, than their therapist, and even their partner. And so it's a massive area of focus at the moment for us.
Yeah, I love that. And as leaders and managers, that's not something that we were trained or prepared for, right? Like when I grew up and first became a manager, I never ever had any training or a conversation around how do you have a conversation around well-being with an employee. So we have to help prepare them, right? To have these conversations. And again, sometimes, and that was for me earlier on, is the expectation that I had to have an answer. Then I realized, actually, I don't need to have an answer. I need to be there to listen and then signpost and help people. Whereas sometimes a lot of managers feel like there's this pressure that they have to have all the answers, and then they don't have any conversation. Right. Which is probably the worst thing.
100%.
That you can do. So bringing them all together in that way that you did, so they could realize that I'm not alone.
Right.
I have this great support network around me of other managers in the business to have open conversations. I'm sure that was really helpful for them.
Absolutely. I mean, to be seen, to be heard, to be valued, to be respected, I would say that is something that we take a lot of pride in, is ensuring that everyone feels cared for and everyone feels that they have that level of support. It reminded me, Chris, of one of the other elements I was going to mention. And so when I started early in my career in consulting, I used to think you had to have the answers to everything. And I put all this pressure on myself. And again, prepared and would study up on my clients, the business landscape, learn as much as I could. But I felt this deep level of pressure. And then I did an executive or life coaching certification, and it completely changed my perspective. The power of questions, the power of listening. And I think in leadership, that is so big. That is so big. No one knows all of the answers, but if you've got a leader that's able to surface the questions, focus on what's the problem we're trying to solve, and listen, really, really listen. We talk a lot about listening to understand, not to respond, listen to understand.
Underrated.
It's quite powerful.
Yeah. And also, I think for me, to that point, the power of being vulnerable.
Yes.
Right. So your point, I felt like, I think all of us have had that pressure. You feel like you have to have the answers. You have to be the person to know. But as a leader, I realized one of my biggest strengths is being vulnerable so that my team can then shine.
Right.
Because I was getting in the way.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. So, and once you ask for help, lean in, you see the engagement, the excitement, leading with empathy and being vulnerable. I used to think that was like a weakness for many years.
It's a superpower.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Chester Elton, my coach, kind of helped me realize that. And all of a sudden, my team's so much more excited and engaged. I remember I had a few employees in the past who first joined. They were like, "It's just really strange that I'm in a business where the team can challenge the CEO."
Yes.
And I was like, "Why is that?" It's like, "But you're the CEO, and that person just said that you're wrong." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's great. That's why I hired so many great minds."
Yes.
just because it's my business doesn't mean I have the right answer.
Yeah.
And they were like, "I could never say that in my previous company to someone more senior than me." And I was like, "No, I want you to bring you to the table, right?"
Right. That's how you drive innovation. 100%. I think it's creativity, innovation, ideas. I mean, I know I mentioned earlier when we think about our franchisee network around the globe, there are so many incredible ideas that exist out in the system. Our ability to connect the dots, to learn from each other is so crucial to helping the system move faster and further.
I can only imagine have you gone on sort of the talent marketplace journey yet? Or is that still early? Because I can just imagine the wealth of knowledge and skills that exist that are untapped in your organization that you perhaps don't know about.
Yes, we are in the process of digitizing, I would say, our core HR and our talent and performance processes as we speak. We've got a few markets that have already launched our new system, and we're partway through, but it is so important. That's going
to be incredible. When you get to tap into all those skills that exist out there, it's going to be unbelievable. I can only imagine at that scale.
Yes.
The mentor opportunities, the gig opportunities must be really exciting.
Absolutely.
I can only imagine.
I would say, talent is a massive priority for us at the moment. One of the areas we're leaning in as we're modernizing our systems to create more visibility and also more empowerment for our people to create their own profiles in a system. Exactly. So where their interests lie, what their mobility looks like, all of that is something that we're giving us a bit of a sense of control versus not having that clarity of who knows what and what my preferences might be, what my skills might be. But creating that, and one of the things we're focused on is how are we developing our talent, not necessarily just for the next role, but for the next role in many cases, and thinking about the balance of 70, 20, 10, right? We want to get 70% of those experiences or that development on the job. As we're going through change and transformation, that is abundantly available because there are so many opportunities to lean in, to stretch, to think about how do we redefine the future in terms of how we operate in a way that allows us to grow the business. The 20%, the coaching, the mentorship, and then also formal learning are certainly key as part of that as well. But I would say in a moment of change and transformation, we've got so many opportunities to stretch our talent. But coming back to the empathy piece, I think that also there is as you're going through change and transformation, as leaders, we've got a responsibility to help meet people where they are. Help them understand the meaning and the why that we're leaning into the change and making the change as an organization and a business. Secondly, think about what does it mean for them? What are the skills and capabilities? How might that be evolving? And then helping them focus on what they can control, the self-efficacy, at times it can be disorienting going through change when you don't have clarity or certainty.
Yeah.
And where we can provide, as much as we can provide clarity and certainty on where to focus, what roles and responsibilities look like, I think is something that certainly is going to help us on that journey.
It's going to keep people engaged.
Yeah.
Because people need to know, what does this mean for Chris?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. It's all well and good sharing the change and the transformation, but you have to make it personalized.
Absolutely.
So you're relying quite a lot heavily then on your leaders and managers to really translate that.
Yes.
Ripple down throughout the business.
Absolutely. And I would just do a shout out to, our CPOs and HR partners around the globe that as we go through change and transformation, we've got change within our function. So, the oxygen mask moment, but also we're helping other functions navigate that change as well. Thinking about what are those skills, thinking about what, are there shifts in organizations? What does that look like? How will we work together? New ways of working, new partnerships, collaboration. So, great time to be in HR.
Yeah.
Exciting time to be in HR and exciting time to be at McDonald's.
Yeah, amazing. A bit of a random question, but what would you say is one thing about McDonald's and your culture in the business that people don't know, but that they really should, that isn't spoken about enough?
Yeah, the first thing that I think about is our values. Our very first value is serve, put people first. That's our that's our employees, that's our customers. But really putting people first is, I would say, at the heart of our business. Inclusion. We open our doors for everyone. Absolutely a critical central value that we have. Integrity, doing the right thing. Community, we are good neighbors. So we talked a bit about the franchise model and the proximity, local sourcing in many of our markets, but that community piece is so critical. And then family, certainly last but not least, the three-legged stool that we talked about. We get better together. And so I would say, that's something that has lived within the system, and you see, around the system, but something that I would say I'm perhaps most proud of is how we really do put people first and think about that.
You literally put it first in your values as well. Exactly,
yes. Quite intentional, I would say.
I'm sure that was, I can imagine that conversation with the team. We've got to actually literally put it first.
Yeah.
Last question before I let you go. What advice would you give to your younger self, those HR leaders of tomorrow as well that will be sitting in your seat one day?
Yes, it's a great question. Follow your curiosity and follow your passion. I feel so grateful that I've had the opportunity to do work that I love for the last 20 plus years. And it's because I've been curious. It's because I've asked questions. It's because I have seen and leaned into opportunities and raised my hand for opportunities that may have been hard or something that I haven't done before, but lean into the opportunities as they present themselves and have fun. Don't beat yourself up, I would say as well. Give yourself grace.
Yeah.
And lean into the journey.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. I can't believe we got to see each other. I'm going to see you again in Vegas.
Yes.
In a few months as well.
Absolutely.
So I'll see you there soon. But thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Chris.